Welcome. I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the Dharawal land on which we meet today. I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and I also extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. When I showed up for my first day of work here 8 years ago, I thought I knew what an entrepreneur was. Who was going to be the next unicorn? Who had the most interesting pitch deck? Who raised the most amount of money? Essentially, what these entrepreneurs strive to do then and now remains the same, to solve a problem. But are today's entrepreneurs the same as they were during COVID, pre-COVID, or 5 years ago? I'm John Kerr, the Program and Community Manager here at iAccelerate, which is the University of Wollongong's incubator and accelerator. Here at iAccelerate, we regularly get asked, how's the face of entrepreneurship changing? Well, today we'll hear from our panel of experts, entrepreneurs and founders who have been along that journey. Like you and me, entrepreneurs come from different industries and backgrounds. I'm sure we'll answer some of your questions, generate some more, give insights, but most importantly, show that someone who has an idea with determination, a connection to the problem, a lot of belief and plenty of support can invent, share and make change. What we're doing now is I'd like to introduce our panel, but before we do, we have a question and answer section below in the tab. So as we go along the way, we'd love to hear from you and throw out questions to our panel. We've got someone on the panel who will moderate for us and we'll ask those along the way. So without further waiting, I'd like to introduce our panel of Josh, Beck, Nathan, Joel and Samantha. I'll hand it over to them. We'll start with you, Josh, if you want to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. So my name is Joshua Allen. I'm the founder of a startup business called Mogwai Labs. So Mogwai Labs is a liquid yeast lab that caters to the brewing industry. So more specifically, we sell live liquid yeast pitchers to both professional and home brewers and other beverage makers. And we link that in with other associated lab services. So at the moment, we have some lab space linked to the University of Wollongong, and being an early stage where we're sort of at a point where we've just generated our minimal viable product, and we're just sort of getting that out the door to a bunch of early adoption customers. So I guess sort of getting back to why yeast. So for those who don't know too much about beer, it is one of the core ingredients responsible for creating beer. And in the current sort of brewing landscape, particularly in Australia, for beverage makers in Australia, they need to source their yeast from overseas. So that's sort of the idea for my startup.
Thanks, Josh. Over to you, Beck.
Thanks, John. My name's Rebecca Glover. So together with April Creed, I'm one of the co-founders of Exsitu. We've got a cloud-based app that helps people to explore and communicate their core values. We've come from the aged care sector, and a lot of people become very vulnerable when they require care and they don't really get to advocate for who they are as a person and the unique values. So we came up with a very different sort of way of using an app with card sorting to help people really think about what it is that they value and how to communicate that effectively in documentation and actionable insights in the aged care sector. And we work not just with the aged care sector, but also with estate planners, medical professionals, and a range of other people to help them make sure people are seen as individuals and their values are respected in healthcare.
Thanks, Beck. How long have you been going for?
So we've been going since 2017 initially. So we actually spun out of IRT Group, a local aged care provider. And so we both came from the aged care sector with over 45 years experience. And we've been working in, I think 2018, we came into the iAccelerate building and we've been going since then.
Great, thank you. Nathan, over to you.
Yeah, hi guys, Nathan Harper. a founder of Finlert. We make apps for the Xero App Store. So Xero is some accounting, financial software that small businesses use. And we make apps that make Xero better by extending it and giving it additional functionality. We've kind of been in and around iAccelerate for quite a while. First came here back in 2013 with a different idea that kind of went through its cycle and then ended up switching to this probably about 18 months, 2 years ago.
Thanks, Nathan. Welcome aboard. Joel.
Thanks, John. I'm Joel Kotter, the founder of Alatrack. We are a cloud-based transport management system. So basically, we provide software solutions to transport companies and manufacturers. We were founded in 2014, moved to iAccelerate in 2016. We've grown pretty much in that space from 3 people up to a total team of about 60 now. And basically what our software does is we basically provide automation solutions around a lot of old, heavy paper-based processes and help companies perform stuff safer and visibly nicer towards their customers as well.
Thanks, Joel. Welcome aboard. And Samantha.
Hi, I'm Samantha Stutchbury. I'm one of the co-directors of iAccelerate, and I have the best job in the world. So my job's to help all these amazing, bright people take their ideas and help support and enable them to get it out to make real impact and change in the world. So that's what I do.
Thanks, Tam. What we wanted to display today was the early stage startup, the early stage founder or entrepreneur, as in Josh, who's just starting on his journey. Rebecca, who has been on about a 3-year journey and is starting to emerge out now as a scale-up company. Nathan, who's one of our serial entrepreneurs who keeps creating and creating ideas and creating products. And Joel, who's further along the journey with 60 employees and now looking at what's an exit strategy and what does entrepreneurship look like for him moving forward. So welcome everyone to the panel. And we'll kick off with just something to shake the nerves out a little bit. When you started, what did you call yourself? Was it a side hustler, a founder, an entrepreneur? Were you something else? Were you over to you, Beck, or Joel, Nathan?
I can start off if you like. We were actually intrapreneurs when we first started because we were working with IRT Group from within their organisation. So yeah, we since emerged as I more often use founder or co-founder nowadays, sometimes executive director, but yeah, I think founder is a bit nicer and a bit less formal.
Yeah, I've stuck with the founder label myself and still sort of sit with it, but I'm trying to embrace the CEO label now. I still feel like a little bit, still seems a little bit weird for me, but yeah, still like to stick with the founder name.
Yeah, and I when I first kind of got into this world, I didn't know what a founder was, so I was, I guess, calling myself a CEO or something until I worked out that I was actually a startup.
Now you're the CEO, so welcome aboard. Look, I'd like to start the conversation really when it seems when you talk to people, they talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID. So in the startup world and the ecosystem that we're all around, I want to see if there's been some changes of how you found the pre to post-COVID. So when we're looking at it, what have you found? I'll hand it over to Josh. What have you found that the last 2 years have been like during COVID? Did it stop you? Did it speed you up? How have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so like I essentially like gave up my previous job and went sort of all in on this startup pretty much as soon as the COVID outbreak happened. So, I mean, like, I thought it was quite beneficial in regards to, me starting the business. I was in that sort of business plan and sort of just trying to get organized sort of part of the business. So it really slowed down time for me and sort of meant that I had a lot more time just to, I guess, like to myself, just to get organized, plan more. And then now the landscape seems to be sort of picking up speed a bit more. So I'm actually, yeah, I thought it was it benefited me, I think, on what I'm trying to say.
Joel, how did you find the pre to post COVID break?
Yeah, it was an interesting one for us. I mean, the huge necessity for contactless delivery, came into effect pretty quickly when COVID sort of came around, which our software caters for and catered for prior to the COVID outbreak. So we were in a very interesting situation where we picked up a lot of business. Traditionally, couriers and that type of stuff had something in place, but our space that we play in is the really heavy vehicle space and the heavy machinery and heavy material. So it was always, go see someone get something signed. So we got this huge boost pretty much straight away. The problem with that, though, is our traditional method of actually delivering our application. We're a high-touch SaaS solution, so we like to get out there and sit down with the users, train them, on their site. So on one part, affected us. We got a whole bunch more work and some really large contracts from some of Australia's largest companies sort of came on board. But then we had no way to deliver them using a traditional method, so we had to pretty much change our whole operational process to be able to deliver our product in a new manner without actually physically being on site with the customer. So yeah, it benefited us, hugely in regards to, acquisition of customers, but yeah, made huge changes in the operational aspect part of our business.
So putting on your founder hat, when you look at the staff, you had 60 staff. They all get scattered to the ends of the state or of Australia, working from home.
Yeah.
How did you find being an early stage entrepreneur, putting on that hat of now I've got to be CEO? How do I rely on people that I can't talk to immediately, walk around to the desk? What was the impact of that on your startup and your business?
We had it happen to us twice. So my engineering team, we actually have an office in Pakistan, and that's where 40 of our staff sit. So it was very interesting over there, especially because of the infrastructure in our office over there is great, but the infrastructure at everyone's houses aren't as great. Electricity is a problem in these environments. So that was the first big wave, trying to understand how to go and change, allow people to develop from home in these environments that, may not have been suited to be able to sit there and have electricity the whole time. It was a really, really challenging one. So we got some external help over there. I had to try and provide generators and these type of things to our staff at home if they required them. Here it was interesting. I think the biggest challenge was we're doing this big pivot. We're changing the way we onboard customers. We've got all this work. We don't know how to do it. And while that's happening, not being able to get up and talk to someone and seeing the differences in the people's perceptions of how someone's speaking to them solely because it's over text rather than, there was some really unique challenges that, that we had to overcome. And probably, we were hoping we didn't have to overcome them. It was only a short thing, but in the end, with the multiple lockdowns and here, there and everywhere, it just sort of come into the office. Now we've got to go home and all that sort of stuff happened. And we just ended up really adapting and embracing it, to probably a little bit of a detriment. When we came back, everyone was still in that whole, it's been a tricky situation, but it was pretty much just the get in, get it done, and deal with the cultural changes as they happen. It was like we started all over again. All the processes, everything sort of went out the window. It's brand new, implement new processes and see how it goes and make changes where we need. That's essentially what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose your customers were dealing with the same issues of how do we talk to a company where we can't drop in or they can't come and train us face to face. So double-sided. Rebecca, you're in a more of a service face-to-face industry. How did you find pre-post, that middle ground?
It was a little bit of everything for us because we had the aged care sector obviously had a huge amount of challenges through the pandemic. They've had challenges anyway, but especially through the pandemic. For us, I mean, one thing we did used to joke about was being, coming from a startup type environment, you're pretty used to being agile and pivoting anyway. So we did very much take the opportunity to, when the world slowed down, to focus on the tech, build a new iteration of the product, and that kind of thing. So the challenge in some ways was the grind of, working with contractors and keeping progress happening when the world was slowing down so much. And we just tried to be very strategic about it and make the best use of the time we could when it was very difficult to have touch points. You know, we couldn't go out to facilities. They were really limiting visitors as much as possible. They had too much on their plate to be taking on new initiatives. So we just really made the decision to be ready to go when the world opened up again. And now that's where we find ourselves. So, you know, there's been a lot of reflection. We're a very values-based company and process that helps people think about all kinds of important things about, you know, their well-being and what sort of medical interventions they may or may not want and those kind of things. So people have had a couple of years to think about that sort of thing a lot. So it was very front of mind for people, and we wanted to be ready to jump out of the gates when the world opened up, and that's what we did. So we're, you know, I think Josh said it as well, the world has started to pick up pace again now, and we're very much running with it. So
Nathan, for you, being a pure tech company, how did you find it?
Yeah, not a lot changed for us. So we already had a hybrid work structure in place. So we had people working from home where required. And for us, I guess the main shift was that we just went 100% work from home. And, you know, just like everybody else, getting used to that concept and finding ways to make sure you still kind of got outside and get some sunshine and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, other than that, pretty much the same. If anything, higher demand for services during that period, especially software development services. So as well, our primary product in the Xero App Store really is about promoting awareness of where your employees are and you know, when they're going to be on leave. So it was actually really good for us because we had some hybrid working functionality in that as well. So if anything, it kind of helped our product along.
Yeah, keeping a track of how everyone's coping at home is really important. Over to the group, is it harder now as an entrepreneur or easier? When you look at, you're all different parts of your journey, but over the last sort of 2-3 years, do you find it's now easier to be an entrepreneur and a startup because there's so much opportunity out there? People have got a side hustle, they're working from home and being able to try something else and seeing, oh, I can work from remotely and jump into a program or be educated like we've got at the iAccelerate program while they're doing some other work at night. So do you think it's easier now to be an entrepreneur from when you started or harder?
I can kick that one off if you want, John. I think at the moment, it sort of probably forced some people's hands into jumping into it. It's probably something they've always wanted to do and they never had the opportunity because of work. And, you know, and I think COVID may have pushed people in the direction, they may have lost their job, may have just kicked off their side hustle. So I think it's probably helped push people in a certain direction. I think now there'd probably be a few more in the space. When we start talking about, you know, becoming an entrepreneur, the issues about entrepreneurship in this time is especially once you start scaling and trying to find talent. COVID's absolutely killed that solely because of a lot of the work from home type things that are happening now. When we used to be able to get in Wollongong people traveling 4 hours a day to North Sydney on crazy money, wanting to take a little bit of a haircut coming down to Wollongong, that's sort of gone away now. They're on North Sydney money working from their balcony. So that's probably a downside of that for trying to scale. But I think in regards to kicking it off now, I think COVID's probably been a good eye-opener for some people that were sort of stuck in something that they didn't want to be, always wanting to go into entrepreneurship. And COVID showed them that security is not really security in a lot of these times, you know, or everyone's a lot of, scared to make that jump. This has probably kicked them off that cliff, if that made sense.
I completely agree with Joel there. I think that it's the people's perception of risk. It was a big eye opener for people, and remote delivery and remote workforces are a lot more. You know, people have seen possibilities like that, and it's made it more. I think the thing, it would be easier for certain people who may have had accessibility issues to be able to access programs like iAccelerate. And because people have taken the opportunity to develop their offerings, and that includes iAccelerate as well, they've done a lot of work, and the communities have grown. I think the other thing that has changed since COVID is the sense of community amongst businesses wanting to work together to solve problems for people. So there's definitely some positive things that have made it easier. There's always challenges, but there's some positive things that have made it easier too.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Beck. I think looking back historically, there was always that really competitive nature. So I'm in a startup or I'm an entrepreneur and I'm not going to tell anyone I'm going to go out and become the unicorn, or I'm going to go out and get all the money in this space. How have you all found, and being in lockdown, still trying to talk to each other and communicate with each other? How's the community, how's your community grown, or have you reached out more? I know Joel's got a great story at the moment of a building he's in and some situations that are happening there, and I'll hand it over to him. But how's everyone found staying connected as an entrepreneur? It can be a lonely journey and a lonely life. How have you found a way around that compared to pre-COVID or 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I've found it fairly, the network that we've built, I think this building and iAccelerate being a pivotal piece, some of the networking and relationships we built here with other people in similar type of situations, it was hard going through without COVID being here. Just having people around that I could pop out and ask. And John, there's been multiple times I used to walk into your office, say, hey, this is just crazy. I can't, like I'm the only one going through this. You're like, no, go speak to them. They went through this last week, and go speak to them. They went through this a year ago. Go and see, these are the type of things that definitely help. You think you're lonely, you think it's hopeless, but the network definitely helps just by having access. During COVID, it was, even harder. We didn't have the building, we didn't have the people. We still had the network, we still had the connections. So, we were going through something that was, especially at the start, we had no idea what was going to happen. Neither did anyone, but just being able to bounce those ideas off the network of other people in the same situation as you is invaluable, absolutely invaluable. And, like for us, it wasn't so much a COVID thing now that COVID's sort of slowing down, but that network is the reason where my team is still together right now. 2 weeks ago, Nathan's in the same building as well. Our building had some structural damage in the high winds. We got evacuated from our building, and I made one phone call, and John, spoke to whoever needed to and found us a space. So our business was not interrupted. We were out for a day. You don't get that without a network. You don't get that without a community like that. You can't. You literally can't. So yeah, it's invaluable. Over, during, after, anytime.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh, Nathan, you go. Yeah.
Yeah, we obviously had similar circumstances. We're in the same building. We went a slightly different way and ended up sharing space with another startup in Wollongong who was just a couple of doors down the road. And, like Joel, it was awesome. We could just kind of walk in there, plug our computers in, and away we go. So there is this real culture we find in Wollongong where everybody wants to help everybody else out, and they're always willing to kind of bend and stretch to make things work for other people. We inside iAccelerate, we started this Silicon Valley sort of community probably about 4 years ago now, maybe 5 years ago. And that has really helped as well. So it's kind of a more of a technical focus. And the idea was to connect the people who were working in Sydney so that as our startups grew, we had good connection with people to be able to hire in Wollongong. And then COVID just accelerated that, right? So that everybody who's working in Sydney is also working in Wollongong now. And it's presented heaps of really good opportunities to connect to people in that way. And, in this particular circumstances, find an office real fast when yours starts falling down.
Thanks, Nathan. Just a reminder to everyone as well, if you've got a question, pop it in the Q&A section down below, and Samantha will open up to questions to the group.
So I have one, if that's okay, John.
Yeah, jump in, Tam. Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the connections within Wollongong and between Wollongong and Sydney, and we all are down here, so we know how special it is. What has changed, not just with COVID, but over the last 10 years in regards to globally? You know, everyone has a dream of running a global company, often from their favorite home. What do you think has been the change in the face of entrepreneurship globally as a result over the last sort of 5 years?
I'm happy to kick that off. I really think that the movement of innovation and technology and the methodology behind innovation that can have programs like iAccelerate to support companies to grow is just better and better developed all the time. And it allows people to come, like April and myself, come from different sectors with no entrepreneurial background and have a framework to be able to test things in small and fail and learn fast and grow in a, so that you're taking risks in a very controlled way. And I think that really means that we can not just use technology, but also use what we've learned from implementing technology to solve some of the big challenges that we have in the world. And that then, it helps us to solve them a lot faster. So I think it's opened and created a lot of opportunities for people that would never have considered being an entrepreneur.
I think in that software space, Beck, I 100% agree. And I think in that, there was always that typical flow of a cloud-based company. In the last 10, there's always, go over to San Fran, get your money from VCs, and we're starting to see, companies like Atlassian going crazy, and even Canva, with crazy valuations, and they're based here, they're not there. Just seeing it open up to not just Australia, but everywhere in the world now. There's not that same old. There are a lot more venture capital. There's a lot more money in those areas, but it's grown tenfold. In other locations, you don't have to make that journey over to try and start a software company anymore. Programs like this and other ones, and venture money being, getting larger and larger, funds getting larger and looking for more and more opportunities. This wasn't available 10 years ago. There was nothing, and I think it opens your eyes when you start seeing companies in your backyard doing things. And doing the things that you never thought you'd be able to see unless you went that traditional route. It's probably been the biggest change for me to be able to be seen in the last 10 for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Tam. I agree. I think looking 10 years ago, 8 years ago, a great spreadsheet and a great presentation can get you some great money now. I think the VCs are quite comfortable, and the companies are quite comfortable presenting like we are now over Zoom or virtually to put a great pitch deck together. Looking now at the four of you as entrepreneurs, founders, startups, I just want to look back at when you started. It's always hard when you're a startup as self-doubt or imposter syndrome. And am I really an entrepreneur? What do I tell my friends? What do I tell my family that I'm going to work to do, but I'm not making any money? How do you deal with that scenario? And when does that change from, well, I'm not an imposter now, or I don't think I'm a leader? So we'll go, Josh is at the early stage, so I'll hand it over to him to begin with. What do you call yourself now? How has that doubt gone? What do people look at you? How do they look at you and talk to you?
I still refer to myself just as a founder, and just like a small business owner, I guess. In terms of like what people refer to me as, my friends just think I'm this crazy yeast guy, I guess. But in terms of like imposter syndrome and that stuff, it's definitely something that I experience, and I probably will continue to do so. And it's sort of coming about more and more where I guess for me, I'm interacting with important people in the brewing industry, big brewing companies, where you're having interactions with these people and companies, and you're like, oh my god, they want me to fix this problem for them. They want my input, and it's something where it's it's still quite mind blowing, I'll say, but it's sort of it's something that I'm trying to embrace. Having a bit of nerves about doing a job properly, just embracing it. And, you know, like I like to think that it'll be something like, you know, like say in 5 years' time where, you know, like fingers crossed, the business ends up being successful, where you can look back on those sort of early stage deals where you're like, oh God, I really thought I had imposter syndrome back then. But like, yeah, just embracing it and trying to be as comfortable in the situation as possible.
I'll move over to you now, Rebecca, because like I hear from Josh, I'm just a, and this is a word that comes around. I'm just a founder. I'm just doing this. I'm just a, and then that's one thing we try and say, stop saying I'm just a. When did you stop thinking you're just an entrepreneur and now you've won awards, the company's won awards? How has your face changed as an entrepreneur going from where Josh is at to a few years down the track?
Yeah, it's a really, especially when you talk about imposter syndrome, I totally relate to Josh's comment about you kind of find yourself in these situations where you're, you know, in boardrooms or whatever, talking to people, and people are very hungry for your opinion. And you think really like, wow, okay, like you do have something to offer, and it's that balance of imposter syndrome. And for me, you know, we're two women in the technology space, so it's an interesting journey. Some people, you know, we quite often get asked to speak to other people in the company and things like that, and it's kind of trying to say, no, what questions have you got? We can answer those for you. And I find that one of the big things that really motivates us is when you look at what is currently out there in business as usual. And that really grounds me a lot. We quite often tell ourselves, you know, to back ourselves, we've got the cookie, we understand the problem, we understand. And those awards that we won, we're really proud of, because if you look at imposter syndrome in the tech space, a lot of people will ask very detailed kind of questions about, you know, things to do with code and HTML to sometimes even fluster you. Like sometimes it's not on purpose, but sometimes it does feel a bit as if it is. And, you know, trying to back yourself and say, we've got the confidence, we understand this, we have the right team around us, and we can tap into the knowledge of the local community. I mean, Nathan's an awesome example of he'll get phone calls from us asking us to help with things. So, but, you know, technology is a really broad space, and understanding how to create the user experience and do things like the product ownership. And there's a lot more to technology than just coding it. You need to understand the use case and the business behind it, and how it's going to be integrated with the systems, and how the human beings are going to be impacted by it, and how they're going to use it. And so, you know, I think it's really important to have that self-belief and know that, you know, you understand what you're trying to achieve and why you're trying to achieve it and how you're going to go about it. And over time, your confidence grows. I mean, it was very validating winning those awards, especially because it's around user experience, which is something that is really important to us in the aged care space. But yeah, I think self-belief has to be one of the most important things there.
Thanks, Beck. I'll hand it over to Nathan, because it was interesting when we started the conversation. He came in as the CEO and realised he was founder. So he probably had reverse imposter syndrome, where he came in saying, hey, I'm all this and I've got to step back. What's your take on it, Nathan?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I think in a way it's kind of it's a bit freeing as well. So I kind of got into this space in 2013, and really one of the main reasons I did that was to get away from the corporate world, where I felt very restricted. And so for me, it was like discovering how this whole space worked and working out that, you know what, if you call yourself a founder, you can just do anything. Right? It doesn't matter. There's no rules. It's like there's no job description. So it actually gives you a lot of freedom. And for me, it was all about trying to get some sort of work-life balance, because I was in a like a C-suite role where it required a lot of travel and a lot of reports and all that sort of stuff. And to kind of get away from that and get work-life balance back, work with people in the local community, you know, provide jobs for people and that sort of stuff is just kind of, you know, that was the motivation that got me here. And then that founder thing kind of released me as well to be able to do whatever I wanted. I think it's interesting, Beck and April are like such a good example of a lot of times people come into iAccelerate or they've got this startup idea and, they need to build this app or this, whatever it is that ends up, the tech is kind of a fundamental part of their offering. And it's like, oh, but I'm not a technology person. So, I can't do it. Or I need to find a tech co-founder, otherwise I can't possibly start this business. And it's one of the things I'm particularly passionate about and deliver some content for iAccelerate on it, which is about, it doesn't have to be about the technology. The technology is kind of the tip of the iceberg. That really the fundamental part is all of the other stuff around it. And there's so many tools these days, lots of no-code tools and other utilities that you can use in order to kind of fake it till you make it. And sometimes you can even get to that minimum viable product stage just by using these off-the-shelf tools without cutting any code. It's a really inexpensive way to do it. And it allows you to kind of progress your idea, prove it, pitch it. Some people are raising money using these techniques as well without ever having to pay for code to be created by software developers. And I think Beck's got really good experience in that. And she kind of took this approach of, no, I'm going to do a deep dive and I'm going to become technical. And she did that for a while. And then she kind of worked out, hold on, actually, I'm just going to embrace the right sort of resources. So has that where's that journey got you at today, Beck? Like, kind of where are you in that cycle now?
Oh, I've learned so much because I think like you mentioned about the tools that are available, even when you are going to cut code and you've got a development team, you still have that development cycle of, testing implementations and how the user's going to respond to it. So it's such an important part of the development cycle to kind of do those really basic wireframes and then look at okay, now let's get, work with a graphic designer and start to test that out before you're going to do the code on any new implementation. So I think it's a really crucial piece to understand, and that's why I say there's so much more to technology than just the code as well. And you've taught us a lot about that, Nathan, of, if you try and just look at it from how you start with the end in mind, then you're pretty much going to develop something that's got a lot of problems. So I think it's been a huge learning curve for us that, there's a lot we can do, and it's actually more important for us to do as a grown-up company, so that when we're developing new products or new features, we know how to include that in the development process.
Yeah, and I think the other thing this kind of reminds me of is that whole this idea that you can kind of, like, some startups really can kind of scrap it out, bootstrap their business. They can get revenue early, especially some early recurring revenue, and kind of grind away and produce a really good outcome. And there's kind of pluses and minuses to going that way. And it's kind of always been my school of thought. And it's certainly the way I build businesses, versus that other approach, which is like, I've got to raise all the money up front. I need X $100,000, X $1 million in order to just get myself to minimum viable product, or get myself to prove that I've got product market fit. And I was kind of always of the opinion that, no, this is the way you do it this way, you grind away. But the downside of that is it can be slow and other people can beat you to market. But the good side of that is that it's really low, potentially pretty low risk, versus the other way, which is like, no, I'm doubling down, I'm throwing all my eggs in one basket and going bananas. The good thing is you can potentially do stuff faster and get to market faster and win the market and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, it can go horribly wrong as well. And the more I think about it these days, I start to consider that, maybe some startup ideas do need to take that path. There's some that you just can't grind out as a small incremental improvement sort of product. And you've really got to go big bang right from the start. I don't know how you found that. I think, Beck, you've probably gone more on the incremental improvement sort of path. I don't know where you're at, Joel, with your business.
Yeah, we bootstrapped pretty much. We got a couple of small little bit of funding, but that small little bit of funding was to get us out of trouble that the bootstrapping got us. It was never growth funds, right? It was always to repay debts. It is not easy bootstrapping in the matter that you are grinding, you are trying to come up with the money while you're trying to get revenue and all that type of stuff. If you're trying to do a business where you're trying to get more money and you want to see user acquisition, not so much revenue as a thing, there has to be money behind it. You cannot not bootstrap something like that. And that's where you get these crazy things out there, like you get these crazy social apps that are valued at crazy money but are making nothing. The amount of money it takes, you can't bootstrap something like that. For us though, we were lucky, and I agree with you that the whole, slowness to market, that type of stuff. I look back on our first product and I'm embarrassed about what hit the market. And that means, for me, that we released at the right time. We got something done quick. We released it, we tested in the market, we found fit, and we iterated on that and made that better and better. To try and get the perfect fit, never going to work. From our side though, we got lucky. I'm in a lucky situation solely because I have resources in another country where the employment costs aren't as crazy. So one of our shareholders is Nasir. He's in Pakistan. He runs the Pakistan operation. So we were able to get 5, 6, 7 heads on it without a crazy overhead. So though we were still bootstrapping and we didn't have the cash to go big bang, we were going into a market being transport and transport management specifically, where the incumbents are very old, don't like to change, fixed process. We found holes in the way they do things and thought, how can we get what they have but provide more? So we were able to bootstrap, but with a larger team solely because we had that, resource in Pakistan at the time. So we were lucky where we sort of had it both ways. Still very hard. If we had money behind us though, I was thinking about that the other day, and it's like, if we went and backed, what would I have changed? And it would have been, for me, it would have been a disaster, I'd say, because I would have gone 5 times larger over there. I would have had 50, I would have had the team I have now from day one. Revenue would have came probably at the same time. Because the sales process for us, we're dealing with small to mediums that are 1 to 5 trucks, 10 trucks, 20 trucks. That could be a 6 to 8 week sales cycle. But then we got enterprise, and enterprise is a huge part of our business. We've got BlueScope using our platform, Down is using our platform, Brickworks using our platform nationally. So those cycles though are 1-2 years. So I could have seen for sure the little bit of money we needed to raise to help us get out of the little bit of debt would have been me giving up 85% of my company to cover the debt because we couldn't get the revenue. So there's definitely cases for and against, but I'm glad I went through the grind. And it was very, very hard, but I'm glad I went down that bootstrap path for sure. But now thinking back on it, it would have been nice to have money with what I know now. So it's a catch-22. If I know what I know now and I had the money back then, I reckon we would have been right. But if I just got the money back then without knowing what I know now, we would have spent it pretty quickly, I'd say.
Yeah, great point. It's like old head. If I had that old head when I started, I'd be fine. You can't really change that. If I've got a pocket full of cash and I want to spend it, and is it going in the right space? I'd like to pull on that thread a little bit further. Looking back at when you started and you had, you're thinking of the success and what are we going to be and how's it going to look? What did you think as an exit that I'm going to get 10 times, 20 times what I put in, or I'm going to get this big chunk of money? What did you think you were going to spend it on? What was the face of entrepreneurship for you? I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy a boat, I'm going to have 20 million, 100 million, $1 billion. I'm going to sit back, I'm going to invest. What was it then? And what do you see now as you're going through the journey as this is what an entrepreneur face looks like for me? My values have changed. I've grown up a little bit. The world's changed along the way. It's more sustainable. Is it a Cannon Brooks thing that we're going to stop this? We're going to create this? What's your thoughts on that? Has anyone had an aha moment?
I'm happy to jump in on that one. I feel like from the start, we put a lot of focus on values. So as much as we have a running joke about buying yachts and things like that, we would measure our success by the difference that we make to people's quality of life. And that's always been really important to us. So, I think that's we put a lot of time into thinking about and articulating our values as co-founders together in the really early days, because we knew that that's what drove us. So, money is important and it's a tool, and it can be a tool to make change. But a bit like Joel said before, you could also waste a lot of money and not do the right things. So we prefer to measure other things. And I just think that it can be really difficult to think about success in terms of how much money you made and what exit you had. And I think one other thing that I was only talking about this yesterday or the day before to a family member who was talking about the stress of this kind of job and, and what it is you're doing. But every single day that you're in this job, you are learning so much. And that knowledge that you build when you talk about old heads and what you would have done differently, knowing now what you do know, it's that in itself is such a huge resource. And I think it's really important to count the success of every day and the knowledge that you're building as well, rather than just that big picture of I'm going to go buy a yacht, or, those things that probably don't actually make that much difference, because money comes and money goes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think from my point, when I was looking at this, it's always been the same for me. If I had something I can see the future 5 years ago and see where we were today as a company, I'd be super excited. But now that I'm in it, what's the next? You know what I mean? And the way I look at it was, stability is one thing. I started this business. I didn't have children. I didn't have a wife. It was young. Well, I was young back then. I was still 30, but still. Just going at it and just trying to get something done. It was all about the opportunity. I looked at something and said, why isn't there something here that does this? I was lucky enough to have a co-founder, Dave, who's, had 4 generations of transport and the industry that I was in. And he said, I need this, and everything in the market doesn't exist. So we're like, okay, that's a cool thing to fix. We fix that. And then, okay, well, then there's this vertical. Then there's this vertical. It's always that opportunity aspect. And I think that's the motivator for me. With fixing problems and getting great product to market will come the money, will come the big exits when you're ready, if you can do that. I think for me, though, that end comes when the opportunities start to get slimmer and slimmer. I don't want to be in a business that is maintaining an application or building features that are just features sake to try and upsell or add value. Because there's continual growth and continual opportunity to build more product and make things even better. That's what excites me. That's what motivates me from day one. The money will come. The money will come 100%. If you're passionate about what you do and you're excited about what you do and you're building something that people enjoy, it's going to come. So, like I said, when you're in it, today, there's more. There's always more. 5 years ago, I'd been like at the moment, it's scary to think that some of the things that we used to be really excited about. We used to get a deal and everyone used to go this, and that. We're getting large deals now. It's like, okay, how do we get to the next one? How do we get there? So now we're always looking for the next thing, it's all about opportunity for me. From day one, it always has been opportunity to solve things. That's it.
Yeah, great point, Joel, of what does it look like? What's a win? And does the win make you thirsty for more wins? And I just want to ask, 5 years ago, when you didn't have a wife and you met your wife, what did you tell her you did? And did she go, oh, here we go, someone who's not earning any money, startup grinder who's, how long is it going to be? Am I going to support him? What did you say?
Yeah, I didn't have a wife, but she was my partner or girlfriend before that for a long time, since we were 19. I was just one of those guys that just let it drag on way too long. But it's probably one of the reasons that I've been lucky is to have someone like that to support me. Like, the journey of an entrepreneurship is hard, right? You have detractors everywhere in your life, and not by them trying to detract, but you always get the whole, oh, well, you are doing, but with your skill set, you could probably go to Sydney and earn yourself 150,000, or you could do this and you could do that. It's hard to hear that from everyone in your life and still do that. I was lucky enough to have someone next to me that's like, no, we'll give it a crack. Like, we don't have kids, we're not this, we're not that. Even if we did have kids, it wouldn't be a problem. It'd be like, if you don't do this, you're going to regret it. Give it a go. And for us, it sort of turned out. And just, I was lucky in that space for sure.
So we're coming to the end. So we've only got a couple more questions left, or a couple more statements. And I'm going to pull on that thread again, Joel, of what you're just talking about. these are ecosystems that are being created. So you've got your home ecosystem, you've got ecosystems like iAccelerate, you've got the bigger tech communities that are in Wollongong and Sydney and around Australia, and everyone's creating their ecosystems, which are supporting the growth of startups, scale-ups, entrepreneurs within universities, outside of universities, and in regional areas and in cities. And the government's still putting a lot of money into that space. When you look at, say, our ecosystem that we're talking about here, I just want a statement or a little thing from all of you of how you found that ecosystems supported you, or what were you really surprised when you came in and thought, wow, these people really do care about, they're 6 months in front of me, or 12 months or 5 years in front of me, and they really helped me. So just a quick, this is what I've learned from iAccelerate, or this is what someone helped me with, or a great story.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, just knowing that other people have gone through and having access to people that have gone through what you're going through at that particular time is the biggest thing here. Just having that network. It's a huge piece. I mean, you don't actually know what you're going through, but you think you're alone. You think that no one's ever going to be, everyone goes through anything you think you're doing, that you're the only one that knows. If you have the right ecosystem and have the right network, you'll find someone who's been there, and it will help you out of it. It's a massive thing. There's probably I would say that half the people that have failed that don't have this environment probably wouldn't have if they had the environment, because they don't have the right direction. Just by having the ecosystem, you've got direction. Huge amounts.
Yeah, I think I've got a really specific example. We went to as part of Austrade, we're launching like these. I don't even know whether it survived COVID, but this idea of like launch pads around the world for Australian businesses, for Australian startups. And in 2018, they invited iAccelerate to send some startups over for the launch of one in Berlin. So I was lucky enough to go along. I think about 5 businesses went, and we got to like do this pitch night to a bunch of people who got expats and others that got invited to this night in Berlin. And then this guy comes up to me afterwards and starts talking about what I've been talking about at the time. And we made this amazing connection, which turned into a really significant piece of business for us. So there's like all of these, really kind of bizarre connections that happen. And it all comes out of this cycle, like Joel was saying, of not only of being able to get support from people who've been through it before, but also there's all of these requirements that people have that you may be able to fulfill, or your business may slot into a piece of their business, or there's some opportunity to do a deal. So there's heaps of opportunities like that, commercial opportunities that come out of it as well.
Yeah, I think having these networks, you just never know when they're going to come through with something amazing. And iAccelerate particularly, what I love when you look at a lot of the other programs that are out there, they're often funded by VCs and have a bit like Joel was talking about with going the traditional path, years ago was to go over to the States and things like that. There's a very traditional checkbox path of growth through some of the incubators. And I think what we really value a lot, particularly with being in the aged care space and linked to healthcare, is the connection to University of Wollongong as well, because it's not just about the money. In fact, the money, as we were talking about before, is very much a tool to get the outcome. So it's looking at it with this lens of, you've got the wider community of the university that looks at things from a different lens to the commercial lens, which can balance it out nicely and focus on outcomes, but also inside the building and having people like John and Tam and people in the iAccelerate office that you can sometimes just go to with this pressing thing that's just happened, or this, I need this, and you just pull a rabbit out of a hat and go, oh, here's this person to talk to, or here's that person. And those kind of things that you just can't foresee, a bit like Nathan's example, where people will fit in your story, but they just do, as well as having that support of people who believe in you.
Just agreeing with Rebecca, Nathan and Joel, just like connection is key. Like, I mean, it definitely, like being essentially like a sole founder, it's quite easy to just get in your head and then just trying to work and solve everything yourself, where all it takes is a It could just be a 5-minute conversation with, you know, like whoever, who's someone linked to iAccelerate. So yeah, just connection is key, makes things so much more efficient. And then I guess for me personally, just iAccelerate's link to the University of Wollongong, where like John, Sabine and Tam have been like an amazing help.
We'll come to the end. Before we hand back over to Tam to wrap us up, just very quickly for 10 seconds, what's the next step in the evolution or the journey of your startup as an entrepreneur as well? Josh, where are you heading next?
Right, so very short-term focus for me, so sort of the next 3 to 6 months, but I'm looking to, so I've got a minimal viable products out at the moment, but I'm looking to launch properly in about 3 months' time. So yeah, just launching and then sort of then investigating sort of the next stage of business growth.
Rebecca?
Yeah, for us, we're really expanding into different channels and broadening what we do in different channels outside of the aged care sector. And it's all about having more people with the ability to advocate for what it is that they value, so that care plans and things like that aren't just about their clinical needs. And so for us, that's what we're charging towards, is having more people with documents in hand that advocate for what they want.
Over to you, Nate.
Yeah, I think we've kind of just hit the point where we're really confident that we've got product market fit for our product. We're starting to get really good traction in the market. We're picking up new subscribers every single day at the moment. So for us, it's about doubling down and then working out that next stage of how do we grow this thing effectively and balance resources and costs and income and all that sort of stuff, because we're a bootstrap business.
And Joel?
Yeah, it's about scale for us now. So we've launched in New Zealand, and that's gone really well in the past 6-7 months. And now we're modifying the application to suit the European markets and in global markets. We're about to launch a different variant of our application globally, probably within the next 6 to 12 months. We should be out there. So that's the next big jump for us.
Yeah, look, I personally want to thank the 4 of you for jumping on and giving us some great insights and some new thoughts, some old thoughts, but really talking about your journey, what you've explored, what you've learned. Great conversations. Hopefully, one step back, I'd like to thank everyone who's jumped on the webinar today to listen to us and listen to the stories that we've got. Hopefully that they've triggered you to become an entrepreneur, or if you're thinking about a journey, or what is a journey, what is it to be an entrepreneur, where do I go to find the first step, where do I go to find the next step, how do I get involved in a community, that we've answered some of those questions along the way as well. We'll hand over to Samantha, who's going to wrap us up, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo John's thanks and thank John for doing an amazing job of steering this conversation. The region is an amazing region. It's got amazing people in it. So please, if you're interested at all, connect to us. And it could be iAccelerate coming to one of our events, or it could be a Wollongong event, or just reaching out to one of us. We really are here to help try and support and encourage people to follow on this journey themselves if they'd like to. So I'll put up a little slide with how to follow us on socials and connect with us. And thank you again for all your time.